Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Dear students, we are back with our geometric design course. We started with the module 2 and we have looked at the cross sections for different categories of roads. After that, in the previous interaction, we talked about the various factors which control the cross section width. Then we looked at the cases under which the width needs to be increased, and then we started with the elements of the cross section. And the first two elements which we have looked at is the carriageway width and the shoulder width and thickness. Now, we are going to start further and we will see that what are the other elements, along with, in the case of the shoulder width and thickness, we have not completed for all type of category of roads. So, we will be looking at that also at the start, and then we will go for median, and then finally, we will close this interaction with the roadway width. Let us look at the leftover portion of the shoulder width. The leftover portion was related to the multi-lane highways and specifically to the 6-lane highways. In this case of 6-lane highways, when we look at the plain and rolling terrain, the conditions for the segregation or the categorization of the information remains the same. You have 4 categories. One is related with the open country, another one is related with the built up area, the third one is related with the approaches to the grade separated structures, and the fourth one is related to the approaches to bridges. If we look at these 3 categories, they are more of a constrained nature as compared to the first one, where the land is available on the sides. When we look at the width of the shoulder, then it is being talked in terms of paved or earthen, a combination of that, or otherwise it is going to be only paved under the extreme restricted conditions of the availability of the land in an area. So, if what we see here is that we get 1.5 and 2, and that becomes 3.5. When we are talking about the built up area, then it is 2 and 2. So, we have the same values here, and they are more or less the same values in the case of a 4-lane highways. When we are looking at the 6-lane highways under the mountainous and steep terrain, then the values here for the restricted conditions again has been taken together, and what we find is that it is 0.25 plus 1.5 meters, and this is raised on both the sides as a paved shoulder under the constrained conditions, and that makes it 1.75 meters. In the case of open country, we have 1.5 plus 1 on the valley side, and then how we are going to provide it is that we have 1.5 meters on the hillside, but when we talk about the valley side, we have a combination, and here it is 1.5 plus 1, that is 2.5 meters being provided. So, that is the way we are going to provide these shoulders on a 6-lane highways. Now, few more information which is there with respect to the mountainous and steep terrain, and when the 6-lane highways are going to be constructed for that. The very first thing is, if the retaining wall with the parapet is provided, then earthen shoulders on valley side is not required. Now, of course, this is not a photograph of a 6-lane highway, but what you can see towards the right hand side is that there is a parapet wall, and we do not have the earthen shoulder on this side. The paved shoulder is being taken up to the parapet wall, and that is the end of the shoulder. Another thing is that the carriageway with the paved shoulder on both the sides shall convert to the section of the grade separated structure at a distance of 50 meter, or at the end of the retaining wall or RE wall, whichever is higher. Now, what does that mean? This means that you are coming with a particular profile. So, this is a carriageway being provided, and then we have a shoulder on either side. So, this is shoulder on this side and a shoulder on other side. Now, when you are coming to a grade separated structure, so the grade separated structure may not be having the earthen shoulder. There may be a possibility of providing a paved shoulder, subjective, you have that much space and you can do that. So, if our section is going to be like this, in the case of a grade separated structure, then what we need to do is we have to converge to the section of the grade separated structure 50 meters before the start of that. So, what we are going to do is then finally we are going to culminate into this sort of a condition. So, we will be getting into the flare condition here, and by doing that flare, what we are section we are going to get is the section which is there at the grade separated structure. If the retaining walls are being provided, then that is to be considered, retaining wall, RE wall or the abutments which are being provided. Another thing is the retaining wall or RE wall, that should have a crash barrier on its top. So, subjective any vehicle goes out of control and hits on the outer side. So, in that case we should have a crash barrier being provided on that parapet wall or a RE wall, so that it deflects back and comes back on the carriageway. Then another thing is, and that is where you can see here that this crash barrier has been provided here, and that is also a curve. So, the two conditions are there, and for those two conditions it is going to serve the function. Now, in case the retaining wall or RE wall is not abutting the paved shoulder, then the section beyond 50 meter from the structure shall be as for the open country. So, we have looked into the table. In the table we found that for a built up area, for the approaches to the grade separated structures or the other structures which are there like flyovers, the widths are different as compared to the open country. So, what it says is that if your RE wall is not abutting, then it means you have the space so as to carry forward the section which is there on an open country with isolated built up area over this particular structure, and that is when it is being taken, or still if there is a possibility of transforming the widths because of any other reason, then the flare which is being provided is at a rate of 1 in 25. So, that is the way we are going to do it. The another thing is the crash barrier shall be provided in the earthen shoulder area. So, you can see that here the earthen shoulder area is there and the crash barrier has been provided on that. So, again this is again a safety side towards the valley also. When we look at the expressway, then in the case of expressway, we have the paved shoulder which is 3 meters wide, and beyond that an earthen shoulder which is 2 meters wide. So, that has to be provided on both the sides of the carriageway, the main carriageway, which can be a 4-lane divided or a 6-lane divided system. So, here you can see that we have a paved shoulder, and then after paved shoulder then we have a kacha shoulder which is being provided, which is also having a grass cover at the moment. Now, paved shoulder whenever it is being provided, then it is going to be of the same specification as that of a carriageway. So, that is one thing which we have discussed previously also. In the case of expressways, when the earthen shoulder is provided, then the thickness of that earthen shoulder is 200 mm, which otherwise in the previous cases was 150 mm if you remember, and this is granular in nature. So, this is the way the shoulders are going to be provided on the side of the carriageways, and that has to be on the either side of the carriageway. It is not on only one particular side we are going to provide it. Depending on the conditions in the center, the type of median etc., which has been provided, some changes are going to be there in those. So, when we have a median, let us talk about it, and we say that what are the various functions for which these medians are going to be provided. The main function of the median is that we need to improve upon the safety on the road, and this safety is related to all type of road users, whatever type of vehicles are there, whatever motorized, non-motorized vehicles are there, pedestrians are there, as well as they also can help in protecting the property on the side by way of the designs which we have incorporated. So, what are the various safety features, or what are the various things which are going to be met when we provide a median? The very first thing is, if the median is being provided when we say it is in the center of the road. So, you have this carriageway in the center of the road, a median has been provided. So, the traffic is moving in this direction here, and the traffic is moving in the opposite direction. There is no possibility of a head on collision in this case. Segregation of fast and slow moving traffic. If the traffic which is slow moving is substantial in nature, then we can have a separate lane for that. And there what we found is that we can have a slow moving traffic, and in this case again to segregate them we can provide one median at this side also. Safety of vulnerable road users. Now vulnerable road users, those can be like pedestrians. So, we are going with the channelizations or the other different type of separations in those cases. So, they are the things we are going to talk there. Segregation of through and local traffic. We have a lot of development on the side of the road, and this development is going to induce a local traffic, and this is a high speed facility or high class facility. So, the speed is going to be very high. Now, we have to segregate these two traffic, and therefore, we can provide a lane on the other side which is a say service lane, and the local traffic is going to move on this one. So, the local traffic is here and the through traffic is going to be on the main carriageway. Separation of turning movements by way of channelization. They will not be defined as a median. So, it is a sort of a channelization which we will be talking when we will take up the intersections. Reduction or elimination of the headlight glare, that is going to be dependent on this width of the median, or if we have a depressed median which can be a one possibility. We are going to look at all of these things, and then if we go with the arboriculture on this. So, we have the shrubs here, and these shrubs are of that much height that whatever the headlight height is there, which is 0.75 meters from the surface, which we discussed previously. So, if that is coming up to that or a bit more than that, so it is going to eliminate the glare caused due to the headlight. Now, when all of these things are happening and the median is helping us in all these different forms, then what is getting in terms of a benefit on the operation of the traffic on that particular road is the improvement in the level of service. That means, with the ease and comfort, all of the vehicles are moving while maintaining the safety of not only their own vehicle, but as well as the other vehicles too. But medians are not going to be provided in all of the cases. So, there are a few cases where they needs to be avoided. Now, what are those cases? The presence of significant tidal flows. The tidal flows means that if you have a road like this and in the center you have provided a median, suppose the traffic is moving in this direction or in this direction, all of a sudden we found there is a lot of traffic here. So, this is a tidal flow. So, it keeps increasing at a certain point of a time and decreases and then increases a lot, but the lanes which have been provided here, they are not being able to handle this flow, but the other side there is not much traffic. If you remember, in one of the photographs previously I have shown that almost 90-95% traffic was there on one side, and on the other side it was not more than 5% of a traffic. So, if that is the case and you have provided a median, then the optimal usage of the lanes which have been provided would not be possible. So, instead of using 2 and 2 lane, we can say at one point of a time 3 lanes are being used in one area direction and 1 lane is being used in the other direction. So, the tidal flows, if they are there, then it is not good to provide. Then the individual carriageways are divided by physical and permanent element are inadequate to handle the peak hour flows. So, that is the same thing. So, if you found that the traffic moving in a particular direction because of say certain attractions here is quite high, and this is not being able to handle the amount of traffic which is there. So, the traffic which could be handled is say 2000 vehicles per hour, and now the vehicles which are coming is 3000 vehicles per hour. Then in that particular case also providing this physical or the permanent medians is not a good idea. What we can work with is a temporary one. So, they can be shifted to this direction or the other direction, either this way or this way, depending on the demand or the traffic which is going to be there in a particular direction. Or there is an intense roadside development without making provision of a frontage or the service road. We talked that there should be a service road. When we are looking at a local traffic, when we are looking at a through traffic, we should provide a service road. We should have a frontage road, that is another way we can define it. But say if these things are not being provided and you have provided a median, then also the lot of traffic which is going to be there in a direction is going to make a problem. And one another case is that if you have a road which is only 2-lane wide, then in that case also the medians should be avoided. So, these are few cases in which the medians should be avoided, they should not be provided. Now, when we talk about the width of the median, then how we are going to look at it? Whether it should be a 2.5 meter wide, it should be a 4.5 or 5 meter wide, it should be 7 meters, 9 meters, 12 or 30 meters, and if you remember that all of these things we have seen when we looked at the various profiles for different categories of roads. So, the very first thing is what amount of land is available. Is it an open country or it is a built up area? So, you have more of restrictions here, or it can be with respect to the type of facility. Say you are on bridge, you cannot provide the medians or the wide medians at all. Type of terrain condition, we have looked at these terrain conditions and their effect when we were talking about even the shoulders. So, the type of terrain, whether it is plain, rolling, mountainous or steep, they are also going to make a difference, because then again this is going to be correlated with the availability of land. The cost of land is another issue. You have the land available in an area, but the cost is so high, and if you have to acquire it, then the cost of project is going to increase a lot. So, then probably you are going to compromise something in terms of the width of the median. The type of the traffic, which may require a segregation. So, segregation can be in terms of motorized or non-motorized, it can be in terms of fast or slow, big or small, what type of that segregation is required. So, this is also need to be looked at, but then this is also going to be correlated with respect to the composition as well as volume, because that is going to define that whether we need to provide a separate lane for a type of a traffic or not. Traffic maneuvers, that is related more with the channelization. So, we have a right turning, we have a left turning, the traffic is moving straight, there is a merging or diverging traffic. So, all these type of maneuvers are there, and if we have to segregate them, then what are the ways in which that can be done is what we are looking here. Directional distributions, so that means we are talking in terms of a divided system to be provided, so that we can segregate the traffic in this direction also. Drainage considerations, safety, there are so many things which can be there which may be going to make a difference, because if you have provided a median, it may happen that on this side you need to provide a channel, so that the water which is flowing from here because of the camber gets filled, and then it is taken longitudinally as well as transversely out of the system. And safety we have of course talked about. So, what amount of safety, what type of safety is to be ensured depends that what can be the width of a system. Here what you can see is the different type of medians which are being shown. The first one is a raised median, and this raised median is taking a less of space in the sense that it is a concrete system, but along with that concrete system you have a clearance or buffer on the side. If you remember, I told that it is roughly around 2.5 meters and 1 meters as a buffer on this side and that side, that total makes it 4.5 meters. We have discussed it about it in one of the profile conditions. Then if you look at 2, what we have is a depressed median or a median which is being left open without having any other development. Tomorrow if there is a requirement of an upgradation, then probably if the space is available, we can take a lane from here, and in that case this median is going to be narrower tomorrow, and we have to see that what type of a median, whether in terms of this raised median we have to provide or otherwise this is sufficient. Another case which is being shown is here in 3, where this is a raised median which is having some width, can be 1.2 meters or more than 1.2 meters. It is a raised system, but it is clearly being marked on the sides. You can see the black and white patches are there, and this is what is a curb stone. which we talked in the case of the profiles also. Here it is a flush median. So, this is a case 4. So, where we are talking about a flush median and the vehicles have got separated out. If there is an emergency, then this can be utilized for the movement of those emergency vehicles also. So, this is that much wide that can be utilized in that sense. Now, let us look at the median widths in different environments. The first one which we are taking is the urban roads. Now, in the case of urban roads, we already said that if it is a 2-lane road carriageway, then we are not going to provide a median on that. If it is say a 3-lane system, then obviously you do not have a center and we should not go for a provision of a median. So, what it says is that if the roads are 4 lanes or more, then we should provide a median there. As far as possible, the medians should be wide enough, but then it depends on the availability of the land. The wider medians, if being provided, then they can also allow the U-turning. So, if you have a say only this much median is being provided and you have a big vehicle which is here, then the turning of this vehicle is going to be something like this. So, what you found is that is taking lot of space and there is a clearance here. But if you have already done a case where this median has been widened at this point, so you allow a driver to take a turn with the higher radius and that is how it becomes more smoother. Transition in width if required shall be done at a rate of 1 in 15 to 1 in 20. In the shoulders we talked about 1 in 25 there. So, if this type of a flare is there or a change is there, then the rate is 1 in 15 to 1 in 20. Now, what are the minimum widths of the medians? If we have a pedestrian refuse, that means there are, this is a section and say this is a median here, there are people standing on the either side of the road and they want to cross either this way or that way. So, the traffic is continuously moving here. What they pedestrians need, that they need a space where they can stand. So, first of all they have crossed one side and then they stand there, check out whether it is safe enough to cross further and they will cross again. So, this space if it is being provided, that is known as a pedestrian refuse, which should be minimum 1.2 meters wide. Median lane for protecting vehicles making a right turn is 4 meters and desirably is 7.5 meters. What does that mean is, it says that you are coming here. So, if there is a vehicle which is coming from this side and takes here and then come and is going to take a right turn. So, what we are doing is that we are providing a space here for that vehicle to be stopped, which can be say 2.5 or 3 meters wide. And if we talk about this one as minimum 1.2 meters as we said here. So, 2.5 plus 1.2 minimum is 3.7. So, what we are saying is a minimum of 4 meters should be provided here at this point. Then absolute minimum is 1.2 meters, whereas desirable minimum is 5 meters. When there are vehicles which are crossing at grade, so the crossing conditions are there. So, these vehicles are crossing like this or they are crossing in this manner. So, at this particular conditions, if the medians needs to be used, they can be wide enough as 9 to 12 meters. When we look at the rural highways, then in the case of rural highways, the minimum desirable is 5 meter. The absolute minimum in the restricted area is 3 meters. When we are talking about the bridges, long bridges and viaducts, then the minimum is 1.2 meters, but desirably we should provide 1.5 meters there also. And in the case of hilly and rolling terrain, we have to look at the topography and see that what are the widths which are feasible to be provided depending on what are the total width which is available, and then deduct from there the number of lanes which are to be provided, or if there is a requirement of a footpath, then we can see we are left with something and that can be provided as a width of a median. Now, we come to the 4-lane divided system. In the 4-lane divided system, again you can see that they are the same things. What you found here is that the 4 categories remains as such. Now, we have 2 separations here, plain and rolling and mountainous and steep terrain. Within that, in the plain and rolling terrain, we have raised and the depressed median. So, depressed median is always provided in the open area. So, it is 7 meters wide, but if it is a raised one, then it is 4.5 meters wide. If you are in a built up area, it is reduced to 2 meters, and if you are on an approaches to the grade separated structures, then it is 4.5 meters, but when you are on the grade separated structure, then this is again going to be reduced. If it is required, then the minimum is 1.2 meters, if at all that has to be provided. In the case of mountainous and steep terrain, we only go for a raised, and that is 2 meters wide. Now, what are the additional things which we are going to talk about when we have a median? So, the very first thing is that a 0.6 meter of the depressed median alongside the carriageway shall be paved, and that is what we have seen when we looked at the profiles also. So, you have a carriageway, you have a depressed median here like this. So, what it says is that on this side, this is 0.6 meter, which should be paved additionally, and we are talking about the carriageway on this side. And then here, if you remember, the crash barrier was provided subjective to this particular widths. So, this is one thing. Another thing it says is the metal crash barriers, they should be provided on either side of the depressed median for width of median up to 9 meters. So, if this is more than 9 meters, then crash barrier is not required. It becomes wide enough, so that if due to any error, if the vehicle goes into the median, it is not going to hit the vehicles on the other side. Shrubs should be used in the depressed median. So, means we should go for a sort of a plantation, and that helps in reducing the headlight glare. The other way of doing it is to use the metal or plastic screens. They are also anti-glare materials. So, they can be used on flat stretches, horizontal curves, but the height can be up to at the maximum 1.5 meters. Suitable drainage system has to be provided, so that there is no stagnation of water here in the median, and that is the reason is that there should be a drain here at the center of this median. So, whatever water flows from this direction and this direction is being collected in this drain and taken longitudinally, and at one point of a time it is going to be drained out from the system towards the site. Transition rate, if any, if it is there, then that is done at a rate of 1 in 20. So, that is how we are doing it. Then another thing is that you are having a long road, and there is a median being provided in the center like this, and you have 2 lanes on that side and 2 lanes on this side. Somebody has come wrongly on this particular section, but was not supposed to be on this. So, now there is no opportunity for this driver to take a U-turn and go back. It should not happen that there is a median continuously from Delhi to Bombay, and then you cannot take a turn in between. So, what it says is that we should have the openings at a certain level. So, if this is going like this, then say we have a opening here, and this opening, they should be provided at a spacing not less than 2 kilometers. So, this distance which we are talking, it should not be less than 2 kilometers here. But one another thing which is there is that sometimes we can provide these openings in a clear manner, sometimes we can say that there are further intermittent opening which is being provided, but this is a closed one, and can be, those barriers can be removed at any time if there is an emergency, due to which one lane has to be closed and the another, and the traffic has to be moved to the other lane, and that is how the both directional traffic is going to be on the other side. Then this width of the median, this is what we are talking, it should not be less than 20 meters. Additional openings, as I said, controlled in nature, needs to be provided for the emergency conditions, for repair, for maintenance, anything can happen. In case of traffic waiting for U-turn at a median, a shelter lane of 3.5 meter wide shall be provided, which I have already defined previously. Then in case a service road is provided in a section passing through a habitation, so because you need to segregate the local traffic as well as the through traffic, then the distance between the exit from a service lane and the median opening, that is what is being talked. So, you have a development on this side, we have provided a median here. So, local traffic is moving on this side, main traffic is moving on this particular side, okay. And then there is a median here, So, the traffic is moving in this direction because it is a divided, is a 2-lane system say, and we are providing an opening in the median at this location. So, this is my median and this is opening there, and then there is a possibility that this continues here also, but this is my say exit for this traffic and entry in this form. What it is trying to talk, that is what we are looking. It says that this distance between the, you can see the distance between the exit from the service road and the median opening shall not be less than 150 meters. So, that means this and this should not be less than 150 meter, that is one thing. Second thing is that if there is a vehicle which comes from here like this, then this vehicle has to move like here, then it will starts deviating. So, there is a weaving action which is there, and then it will come to this particular location so as to take a U-turn. So, this vehicle is going to accelerate here, this vehicle is doing a weaving action here and is decelerating here. So, 3 actions are going in this particular case: acceleration, weaving and deceleration, and whatever is the distance which is required to do that, that is another criteria which needs to be looked at, and whichever is higher has to be provided as a distance between these two things. So, this is another important aspect related to it. So, when we look at the 6-lane divided highway, then the things are more or less the same. As you can see, the only change which is there is instead of 4.5 it becomes 5, or instead of 2 it becomes 2.5. So, that is a change which is there from 4-lane to the 6-lane divided system for 4 categories and the terrains which are otherwise there. Then another point which is a change is that the opening, the spacing of the opening, that should not be less than 5 kilometers. In the case of 4-lane it was 2 kilometers. Rest of the provisions which we have discussed in the case of 4-lane divided system, in the case of like the 0.6 meter of a strip on the side towards the depressed median, or bushes or anti-glare systems, or all those things, they are same here too. So, with this we can close this interaction and we will be continuing with the interaction on the other aspects further. So, we thought of taking up the cases of the medians on the expressways and then the roadway width also, but that we will be discussed in the next lecture. So, till then, thanks and goodbye.